Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to everyone who joining us today. Welcome to SEMBRANI 2.0 Heritage Around Us. So I'm Rohaya, and it is my honor to host today's program. We have two inspiring speakers with us who will share their unique insight into Malaysia's heritage. As we know that heritage isn't just about the ancient monuments or grand buildings, it's live in the spaces that we inhabit, the story we pass down, and the ordinary structure that shape our everyday lives. Today's sessions celebrate this idea, looking at the heritage not as something distant, but as something that surround us, influences us, and deserve preservation. So before we proceed, let me share a brief overview of today's program. We will begin with two sessions for 20 minutes each, and will followed by a short Q&A. Towards the end, we will share some upcoming heritage-related event by ICOMOS Malaysia, followed by closing remarks and a group photo discussions. Now, let us proceed with our first sessions. Our first speaker is Architect Dr. Muhammad Zuhamli An. He is renowned architect and scholar with the passions for preserving Malaysia architecture heritage. Architect Dr. Muhammad Zuhamli, with more than 30 years of experience, and is an active member of Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia. He served as the president of PAM from 2015 till 2017, and had served as the chairman of PAM Heritage and Conservation Committee from 2004 to 2010. He was appointed by Jabatan Warisan Negara as the Ahli Jawatan Kuasa Pakar Pendaftaran Warisan Seni Bina from 2012 to 2021. He authored the Malaysian Vernacular Architecture, and rediscovering the wisdoms of traditional Malaysian architecture, but it is too late. Currently, he is the Deputy President of ICOMOS Malaysia and expert members in ICOMOS International Committee on Work. So then, for today's Architect Dr. Zuhamli will present a fascinating topic titled Celebrating the Heritage on the Ordinary, Masjid Lama Parit, Kuala Pilah. So let's give our full attention to Architect Dr. Muhammad Zuhamli An. The floor is yours, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rohaya. Assalamualaikum, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, before I start, let me just say something very briefly. When we were discussing about reviving the SEMBRANI 2.0, we decided to make it very casual so that everybody will be willing to share the heritage or stories or whatever that they think is valuable for our members. So that's the intention. It's supposed to be a sharing session, and it's not so formal. So I hope you all get the message, and I will encourage everybody just to share so that we can expand our knowledge, and also hopefully we'll help to preserve the heritage around us. Okay, for my topic today, okay, let me start to share my slide. Actually, Masjid Lama Parit Istana is already listed as in the National Heritage List, but maybe because it's a small mosque and people think that it is not very significant. That's why I decided to share this old building to everyone. How I got to know this building is because during one of my many trips to Sri Menanti with Dato' Ajida, he asked me to stop by the mosque, and he showed me the condition of the mosque, which is quite dilapidated lah. Okay, I'll show you the picture, yeah. Okay, all right. So we're going to Negeri Sembilan, and the district is known as Kuala Pilah, and within the Kuala Pilah district, you have Sri Menanti. So I think most of you know Sri Menanti is a royal town. Okay, that's the entrance to Sri Menanti, and there's a pintu gerbang that leads to the old istana in Sri Menanti. Yeah. So this mosque is actually about roughly 1.3 kilometers before you reach the Sri Menanti town. Okay. Under the National Heritage List, it is listed in 2020. Okay, this one, Masjid Lama Parit Istana Kuala Pilah Negeri Sembilan, 20th of November 2020. Yep. Okay, this is the condition of the mosque. I took the photo last August for my presentation in Seoul on the heritage timber buildings. So, according to Azmi, who has written a thesis on this mosque, the mosque has maintained its original condition, except for some parts of the mosque which have been changed. If you look at the condition of the mosque, of course, the original roof was palm ataupun atap, and the community changed the roof to zinc. So that begs the question of whether it's appropriate to change the material from atap to zinc, and then thinking again, if you maintain it as atap, from now and then you have to change the roof. So that could be quite inconvenient lah. Anyhow, I think that's something that we have to ponder when we're thinking about heritage building and how to maintain the integrity of the heritage building. If you look at the building, according to Professor Ghaffar, the principles of design of the traditional Malay house can be seen in this mosque as well. For example, the mosque is raised from the ground about 1.1 meter, and then you have the pyramid roof to create the stack effect so that ventilation can come in from the bottom and from the sides, and also large roof overhang to cover the building from the sun and the rain. Yeah, you also you can also see a lot of windows in the mosque to allow ventilation. The mosque was built in 1796, but there is no documented document to show it as proof, but it is an oral history passed down from the previous generation. It is believed to be the first building built in the Kuala Pilah district, ataupun this area is called also known as Terachi. During that time, the community was not very big, so they built a small mosque, but it can fit minimum of 40 people so that they can carry out Jumat prayers in the mosque. Yeah. So if you look at the mosque, in front of the mosque there is a stone steps ataupun tangga. Now, if you count, there are actually 7 risers. Okay, according to the imam, the current imam of the new mosque, the 7 rises actually is related to the 7 verses in Surah Al-Fatihah. So that's why you can see 7 rises. Originally, the staircase was actually in timber, but they decided to change it in stone. Yeah, and then if you move up, you see that the door is partly hidden by this tree here. The door is actually very small, similar to the doors in Negeri Sembilan houses. So that when you enter the mosque, you have to bow a little bit to show of respect to the sacred space prayer hall inside the mosque. Yeah. So this feature of the pyramid roof on top, according to Prof. Ghaffar, is the feature of a traditional mosque within the Nusantara region. Okay, that's one of the features. The second feature is that the prayer hall is always square. And the third feature, which this mosque doesn't have, is that there is an octagonal, what do you call this, menara, ataupun for the call of prayers. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, this is a photo taken from the front. You can see that here in the front, is the place where the imam will lead the prayers. Yeah. So this prayer hall is under this roof, and the pyramid roof is located in the center of the prayer hall. Because this is the notes that I have prepared so that I don't forget what I want to share with you all. Okay, the mosque is constructed using the tanggam method without using any nails, and also the roof, like I said just now, was palm leaves. The Masjid Lama stopped to be used in 1968 when the new mosque was completed. So the new mosque is slightly bigger. So people just abandoned the old mosque, and they continue to use the new mosque after that. Okay, this feature of the pyramid roof is also seen in Masjid Kampung Laut, except that in Masjid Kampung Laut there are 3 tiers instead of 2. Yeah. And similarly, if you look at Masjid Peringit in Melaka, also has a similar pyramid roof, and also it is 3 tier. So what is important about this pyramid roof, I will tell you later. But if you look at the inside, there are always 4 tiang seri, or some people call it soko guru, yeah, in Javanese. So this 4 tiang seri is most of the time built in using timber or wood, and it goes all the way to support the pyramid roof. Okay, if you look at Masjid Kampung Hulu Melaka also is similar, except this one has 2 tier. Yeah. And the internal has a similar for tiang seri. Okay, this is the floor plan of Masjid Lama Parit Istana. I think Datuk Hajida has also produced the floor plan and also the poster for Masjid Lama Parit Istana. So the 4 columns or tiang seri is located in the middle. So the pyramid roof is above this, and you can count the number of columns surrounding the building. The total is 16. So based on my reading, 16 is actually the common feature in the house built by the suku kaum Aceh. So we can tell that there is an influence from suku kaum Aceh in building this mosque. Okay, I've shared all this. Oh, okay. Regarding the wood, it is actually taken from a nearby area at the foothill of Gunung Angsi, which is not very far from the mosque, and it was taken out using buffaloes. Okay, so this is another view of the right side of the mosque. You can see that the shape of the prayer hall is actually squarish. From here to here is about 6.9 meter. So the mosque is roughly about slightly more than 500 square feet lah. Yeah. So these are the 16 columns, and the columns is raised on stumps, concrete stumps, to protect from water. And when I visited this mosque, I look at the columns. The columns actually, the name of the wood that they used to as the column is called Ponak, Ponak, and it is the same type of wood used for the columns for the Istana Lama. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether this Ponak wood is still available in the forest. So because if you were to what to call this preserve this building, you need to ideally use the typical or similar species of wood. Yeah. Okay. And then okay, regarding this pyramid roof, Prof. Nowina and Nohanita mentioned that the roof is a symbolic mountain. similar to what they have in Hindu and Buddhist religion. So there is still the influence of Hindu and Buddhist in our buildings, even though it's a mosque. And another person said that the top pyramid, since it's vertical, it reflects the connection between human and God. In Muslim is Allah lah. And then the second layer is represent the relation between men. So in Islamic architecture, from what I learned, there is always in mosque, there is always the horizontal and also vertical element. The horizontal element is the relation between men. So when we are praying, the saf, we are always horizontal, and ideally, actually, it is rectangular so that you have as many as possible in one line, rather than square. So that's the horizontal, and then the vertical. That's why in the Middle East you have the dome above the prayer hall, because that dome represents the universe. So that verticality of the dome is actually representing the connection between those praying in the mosque and also with Allah lah. Yeah, and the bottom layer actually represent the relationship between man and nature. So another person, Qasim, mentioned that he was actually referring to a different mosque. The central pyramid create a sense of importance. That means when you look at the mosque from outside, you see that underneath the pyramid there is a special or sacred space, which is the prayer hall. Yeah. Okay, the condition of the mosque currently is very, very dilapidated. I saw that one timber was badly rotten, but it's due to water, not so much of insects ataupun termite. It's mainly due to water. So all these panels is already missing, and you see some of the rafters and purlin also is gone. And on top of the pyramid roof, there is you call it either buah butung or buah butun. The purpose of it is to provide weight or thrust to hold the pyramid roof so that it is stronger. Okay, the construction using the tanggam technique is common in all traditional mosques, so that the mosque can be dismantled and relocated if necessary, similar to what happened to Masjid Lama Kampung Laut. Yeah, so they dismantle the components and then move it to a new site and then reassemble again, and the mosque is now considered, new lah. So even in the Masjid Lama Parit Istana, the floorboards and vertical panels constructed using tongue and groove method. I'm not sure about the floorboard, because based on my observation, I don't see any tongue and groove for the floorboard. But what I read from this thesis by Azmi is that he mentioned it was actually using the tongue and groove method. So if you look at, these are some of the structural components. Yeah, kalau you can see that still using the wooden pegs. Yeah, so the structure all using tanggam. You can see the nail here on the bendul. So how come we consider ataupun we call this building constructed without using any nail? Okay, based on my reading, and some of you may have different idea on this, is that when they say that the building is built without any nail, it means the main structure. So for other parts, which is not the main structure, they still use nails in some areas lah. Yeah, and this is the floorboard. I could not find any evidence of tongue and groove in the floorboard, because usually for traditional Malay house, the boards, there's always a gap between the boards so that you allow the timber to expand and contract. And at the same time, the gaps will allow fresh air to come in from the bottom of the house. So if you have the tongue and groove, I think that's kind of compromise the ventilation from the underneath of the building. Yeah. So if you look at the column, they are still in very good condition. Yeah, except for one column that I saw that was rotting. Yeah, and you can see signs of termite what do you call this? Moving up the building, like for example here. Yeah. See? Okay. Look at the floorboard. I don't see any tongue and groove. The floorboard, by the way, is quite thick. So I think it's about 1 inch. Yeah? And you can see the floor joist also very thick. Yeah. All this is still in very good condition, except that look at the vertical boards, rotting here. Personally, I think it's not so suitable to have vertical boards, except unless you actually have good detailing, so that water will not accumulate at the bottom, because that will start the wood to rot. Yeah, I would prefer actually to have the siding like the tindih kasih. Yeah, I think it's more appropriate for our weather lah, because we have a lot of rain. If you look at the roof structure, all this using tanggam, and you can still see the wooden peg here, and also here the hole for the wooden peg. I think the wooden peg is already missing lah, and you can see all the signs of termite. Yeah. But you look at the condition of timber, is still not affected by termite. I think because the timber is so hard, termite cannot eat through the timber. Yeah. Okay. This is the vertical boards for the wall. Okay. I'm not sure whether this original, but this vertical boards looks relatively new lah, compared to the timber columns and the other main components. So I suspect that the boards have been replaced from the original lah. Similarly, if you look at the railing or the kekisi here, this type of railing, you have to do using machines. So I suspect this is a new addition lah. Yeah. And also the ink sail. Last time in the older time, they didn't use the ink sail. They have at the bottom to hold the window lift, and to allow the window lift to move, so you can open and close it as well. It's similar like a wooden peg also. Okay, if you look at inside the mosque, is very bad condition, but what I want to show you is the 4 columns, ataupun tiang sri or soko guru. Now, each of this column has a decorative carving, and the 4 sides of the column have different motifs. So that's the specialty ataupun something unique about this mosque. Yeah. So from the oral history is that 4 suku kaum were involved in the construction of the mosque. Those suku kaum is the suku kaum Biduanda, suku kaum Aceh, suku kaum Tiga Nenek, and suku kaum Seri Lemak. So each one of these Tiang Seri represents the suku kaum. For example, the one in front here is suku kaum Biduanda. Behind the suku kaum Biduanda, behind here is actually suku kaum Aceh. And then the one in front here is the Tiang Sri for suku kaum Tiga Nenek, and the one behind this pillar is suku kaum Seri Lemak. So that is in a way a record of who actually was involved in the construction of the mosque. Now, you look at closely, so each of the pillar or the Tiang Sri have decorative carving. And based on the thesis done by Azmi, so he elaborated about the origins of this motifs and also what it represents in each of the four suku kaum. So I just maybe share with you as a summary. The suku kaum tiga ini first is called the motif is called the motif kaum. Yeah. For suku kaum Aceh, the motif there are three motifs here. You have the bunga semantung on top, and you have kelarai beras patah, this one, and also bunga pecah empat. Yeah. For suku kaum Sri Lemak is bunga semantung, and for suku kaum Biduanda is bunga pecah empat. So each and every one of this motif has its different meaning. Yeah. So for suku kaum tiga nenek, that motif, the Kawung motif, represent intelligence. For suku kaum Sri Lemak, the bunga semantung motif represent the symbiosis relationship between human and nature. For suku kaum Biduanda, the bunga pecah empat represent the relationship within the community which is bound by law. And for suku kaum Aceh, the three motifs actually represents the importance of tolerance and intimacy, consultation and consensus within the community. So if you are interested, you can go and look for the thesis done by Azmi, and he has elaborated on the origins of the motifs and also the meaning of the motifs. Yeah, I'm just giving you the summary. Okay, this is the suku kaum tiga nenek pillar. Okay, you can see the motif here, and the suku kaum Biduanda in front, suku kaum Aceh pillar. Yeah. Okay, now we go to the pyramid roof, which is also the feature for this mosque. Okay, if you look at the inside, okay, now this is the lower roof. Yeah, and you can see the tiang seri or the main pillars, the four main pillars, okay, up to this point. And there is another structure here that supports the pyramid roof. This structure that supports the pyramid roof, the load is transferred using what they call as tiang gantung or flying column lah. You can see there are four numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, tiang gantung that sits on this beam. Yeah. This holds the pyramid roof. In the center, there is the kita panggil tunjuk langit or king post. Yeah, the king post goes all the way up and supports the buah butun. Okay. So what is unique about this mosque is that you can see underneath the king post there is a carving called lebah bergantung. Usually there is only one, okay, in the middle for the king post. But for this one, all the four flying column has the lebah bergantung at the bottom. So this is something unique lah. And the main lebah bergantung is where they used to hang the lighting for the prayer hall. So it's quite complicated structure, but what I find interesting is that all the members are actually very small. Yeah. So I think that's the ingenuity of the tanggam technique used by the Malays in the past lah. Yeah. I visited Seoul recently to look at their timber construction, but they use very huge logs for the structure because of course the structure is heavier. But compared to ours, I think this one is very very light. Yeah. Okay, the function of the pyramid roof is to create the stack effect so that the hot air will rise, allowing the cooler air to come in the building. Okay, so the king post at the middle is to support the buah butun, which create truss to hold the central pyramid roof. Now the original buah butun is longer at the side. You know, if you notice just now in the photo, they have replaced it with a small tempayan. So even the buah butun, there is a meaning. Is quite symbolic lah. There is a meaning depending on the design of the buah butun. Okay, I already mentioned about the 4 hanging columns and also the lebah bergantung at the bottom of the hanging column. All right. Okay, I think just this is just to show the king post here. From here to the top to the apex of the pyramid roof, and you can see all the structure lah. Very beautiful actually. Yeah, even though it's using small members, but it's very well crafted. So why I'm showing you all this is because currently the masjid is very dilapidated condition, and there has been no effort to actually uh, conserve the mosque lah. So hopefully by sharing this information, we can bring it to the attention of the people in power and position to actually uh, uh, conserve the mosque. Yeah. So as a bonus, I'm sharing with you also another mosque which is not too far from the Seri Melanti town. It's called Masjid Lama Tanjung Beringin. It also has the 4 columns with the decorative carvings. But I could not get inside this mosque because the gate was locked. This mosque also actually has been listed in the National Heritage List. This is a plaque, yeah, from Jabatan Warisan Negara away, and it's called Masjid Kampung Galau Mertang. I'm attracted to this mosque because I look at the proportion; it's beautiful proportion. So I went inside, and then I asked the Nazir who was cleaning the mosque whether he knows when this mosque was built. He said it is at least 80 years old, but he don't remember when this was built lah. So I went inside, I look at condition of the mosque. It is still in very good condition. It still has the 4 tiang seri or main pillars, okay, holding up the roof on top, except that the roof, the pyramid roof has a dome on top, which is quite odd lah, yeah. And all this is built using cengal. Even the boards are still in very good condition, yeah. So just showing, all this detailing with the lebah bergantung and all that. So I think maybe in the future we might want to list this under National Heritage List as well. Yeah. So that's my sharing for today. Yeah. I will take questions later. So if I can answer, I will have to answer. If not, then maybe I will come back to you lah. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, back to you, Dr. Rahaya.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zul, for the insightful and very interesting sharing, actually. So hopefully there will be some enforcements and also initiatives to restore that masjid. We will open for the Q&A after we finish with our second presenter. So our presenter is Ms. Hamiza Afandi. She is a curator at Museum Pahang, where she is responsible for conducting research on the museum's collections and exhibition, specializing in archaeological and anthropological research. She is deeply passionate about using museums as spaces and advocacy and social research. So today, she will be presenting on decolonizing the past, preserving the tangible heritage of Pahang. So let's welcome Ms. Nurul Hamiza. Ms. Nurul is here? No, okay. The screen is yours. Thank you.
Everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone who's here today. Thank you so much for spending your time to listen to my humble sharing on the preservation of the tangible heritage of Pahang. As mentioned by Dr. Rahaya, I am one of the curators at Museum Pahang. So, even though the title is a bit general, but I'm going to be focusing on the tangible heritage that we have at Museum Pahang itself. So that will include the collections of artifacts that we have, the exhibitions, and also the heritage buildings that we have under the management of Museum Pahang. So a little bit of overview of what I'll be sharing about today. I'll be touching a little bit on the decolonization concept in heritage and museums and how it relates to the colonialism in Pahang. And then we'll be looking at how Museum Pahang has carried out this effort of decolonization in reclaiming cultural identity through the exhibitions that we have, and also the preservation of the heritage buildings under our management. And then if we have time at the end of the session, hopefully we'll get to discuss a bit on the challenges that we have in preservation of tangible heritage, especially in the museum context. So because I chose this title, I think it's important to introduce or explain a little bit on the concept of decolonization. People who are familiar with this discourse of decolonization might have come across the terms decolonization and decoloniality. So basically, decolonization is more of the physical process or action of removing a state from its former colony. So basically, it's like the reverse of colonization. So making a state free or a country free again. Whereas decoloniality is more of like the effort or the commitment to like unlearn, relearn, and redo, and undoing things that are related to create these societies, to create societies that are free from the remains of the colonial era in their culture, education, and institutions. But then, as this discourse of decolonization are growing in the academia, these two terms are starting to be used interchangeably. So, for the sake of simplicity, I'll be referring to decolonization as a term to refer to the process of freeing institution, sphere of activity. So that includes decolonizing curriculum, knowledge, or museums from the cultural or social effects of colonization. So why is decolonization important in museum or in Malaysia and in Pahang specifically? I think everyone is aware of the signing of Pangku Treaty, and this is not going to be a history lesson, so I guess this is just going to be a brief introduction of how colonialism comes into Pahang. So we have the placement of the British agent in 1887, and then one of the first few things that the British does is demarcating new borders and appointing these district officers in Pahang. So basically, there are many effects of colonialism or the remains of colonialism that are still can be seen. We can still see them in Pahang or in Malaysia itself. And I think one of the interesting things when it comes to British colonialism is that how the district officers that are being appointed are not just the people responsible for administering the state itself, but also how they have a deep interest in history and the culture of the people as well. Because if you're familiar with with Pahang history, one of the main sources being used to study Pahang history is the book History of Pahang, written by William Minahan, and he himself is one of the district officers of Lipis. So we can see how the main sources of historical narrative are being written by Western or these British officers. So there's a need to like reevaluate the narrative or the sources that we use in telling the history of the state or even our country itself. So as we talk about decolonizing museums, I think it's important to also look at what is actually a museum as well, because I think museum is usually associated or being equated with exhibition, but actually as a museum, we are responsible for a lot more other things, which includes researching, collecting, conserving, and interpreting tangible and intangible heritage as well. And then if we look at the definition of museum by ICOM, we basically need to operate and communicate ethically and professionally. So this is where decolonization comes in, where we have to communicate ethically. So basically that involves looking at sources or narrative that are, I guess, ethical and also accurate. So sometimes Western or Eurocentric resources might not be truly representative or like accurate in representing what the local communities really are. So there's a need to like look at resources that are apart from the Western or the European sources that we used to refer to in like museum exhibitions and so on. I think we'll skip this one just for the sake of brevity. So in terms of decolonizing heritage and reclaiming cultural identity, it is something that's not easy to be done because it is something that needs to be done not in a day and also not in a short term, but an active and ongoing process. And this does not just involve updating or rewriting historical narrative, but also it can also include things like displaying products of local artists to foster national pride. And then we can also organize education programs to deconstruct dominant discourses that used to be part of major or dominant museum narrative, and then most importantly, giving voice to indigenous and local cultures that used to be overshadowed by colonial rule. So next, I think we're going to be looking at how Museum Pahang has been doing and applying all these methods of decolonizing heritage by looking at not just the exhibitions, but also the heritage buildings that we have. But in case there are people who are not familiar with what and where Museum Pahang is, we are actually a state institution led by our current director, Dato' Ahmad Farid, which is dedicated to the education and preservation of Pahang's rich history and culture. So Museum Pahang itself is not just one particular building. We're actually spread across 3 different districts at the moment. So our headquarters are located or based in Pekan, where you can find all the administrative offices. But we also have a few museums over there. So we have Museum Sultan Abu Bakar, Museum Masjid Sultan Abdullah, Istana Mangga Tunggal, and Perkampungan Kraf Diraja in Pekan. But we also have the Contemporary Art Museum and the Royal Library in Kuantan that can be visited by the public. And our most recent upcoming project would be the renovation or the restoration of the Pahang Club building in Lipis. So we're not just one site, but Pahang itself is a big state. So we have multiple sites and buildings that we are managing at these 3 different districts at the moment. And a quick ad, we just actually got ourselves featured in The Star last week, where our director shared his vision on hosting a museum campus in Pekan. So this particular museum campus basically comprised of 5 different museums and 2 historical monuments. So we have this Sultan Abu Bakar Museum, Museum Masjid Sultan Abdullah, and then the upcoming 2 would be the Maritime and also the Police Museum. And we also have the restoration of Istana Mangga Tunggal and Istana Lebanon Tunggal. So basically the preservation of tangible heritage does not focus on just colonial buildings, but we're also preserving the traditional historical monuments as well. We'll come back to this later. But for now, I want to just present or introduce about how Museum Pahang is applying this decolonization method in presenting our exhibition or the narrative in our exhibition, and also the way we present or interpret our artifacts. So this is one of the galleries that we have in the museum. If any of you haven't been to Museum Pahang, I would highly recommend coming and visit Museum Pahang, not because I'm working in the museum, but I think it has a different sort of standard in trying to conduct our research and programs and exhibitions. So do pay us a visit and see all these things that we have done for yourself. So for this one, this gallery presents the history of Pahang rule since I guess we can say around 14th century until the way it is now. So we are presenting the history of the pre-colonial era, and then during the colonialism period, and also the post-colonial era itself. So the reason why we stretch the history, so basically for context, previously the gallery presents the history of Pahang since the rule of Sultan Ahmad, so that's like in the 1880s. But then we recently updated our gallery and include the narrative of the existence of Pahang way before that. So we present the history of Pahang since the 14th century, due to the reason that we want to actually highlight the local genius or the local wisdom through the existence of a traditional administration system and a set of law that has already been in place in the state itself, which is Hukum Kanun Pahang. So basically, with colonization, with the British government or British colonization, there's always this like argument that the people that they colonize is kind of like a bit uncivilized, does not have a system in place. But then we basically include this narrative of pre-colonial era to actually point out the fact that we already have this traditional administration system in place. And then we have all these artifacts that we display, which includes coins, weapons, royal letters, royal seals, which is already showing that the sovereignty and the power that the ruler has at the time, even before the British came to colonize the country. So basically, those are the things that we trying to include in the narrative and the presentation of the exhibition. The next one would be the palace as the Malay Intellectual Center. So with this gallery, we present a lot of the artifacts from the Malay Sultanate. We have the royal regalia exhibited here and a lot of ceremonial and cultural objects presented in here. So the reason for including all these artifacts and narrative is to highlight the role of the palace as the center of Malay literature, arts and culture. So it's like before the arrival of the British and the introduction of their education or like training system, we already have the palaces as the center of gathering of these educators, scholars, writers who come to the palace, and also people who are interested in culture, performers, gathering at these palaces for this to be like performed. So basically, we already have this kind of like culture or like custom in place before like our own kind of like civilization before the colonization of the British to the country. And then the next one would be the Daulat Tuanku Gallery. So basically with this gallery, we present the biography of the current ruler of Pahang. So we have the story of the current Sultan of Pahang, Tengku Ampan of Pahang, and also the Tengku Mahkota of Pahang. But then what's interesting about this gallery is that we have a lot of local craftsmanship being displayed here. As you can see, we have calligraphy, wood carvings, and actually we have the royal attires of the rulers being displayed here as well. So basically, if we can look at the different methods of decolonization of museum and heritage, it is not just about updating the narrative and trying to like look at multiple perspectives or multiple resources that are not just Western resources, but also showcasing local artistry, which we have presented here in Museum Pahang as like a way to like showcase or foster national pride. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but if I see like this kind of like delicate products or artistry, it's something that it makes you feel like proud that our kind of local people can actually produce these kind of like really beautiful pieces, and something that you can actually be proud of when people come to the museum, and especially foreigners, and see how these delicate things are being produced or being presented. And then the next one, we have the Archaeology and Early Civilization Gallery, which I find really interesting, not because I studied archaeology, but because I think it's divided into two sections, which are, we have one part that presents the artifacts and also the history of how the archaeological research or archaeological excavations came into place. But we also have the other section that highlights on the Islamic point of view, where we have displayed Quranic verses that talks about history, the people of the past, the ancient civilizations. And we also have one corner that actually presents about the biography of the 25 prophets that we have, who we regarded as figures who drive the civilization in the past. So it's like, I think this kind of like sections that we have in this gallery makes it like no other gallery or archaeology gallery in other museums that I've seen. So I think it's quite interesting, because archaeology is always seen as something that's very, not just Eurocentric, but also something that's quite distant, because it's something that people cannot relate. So having this like local elements, Quranic verses, and also like stories of the Prophet is something that local people can actually relate to. So it's kind of like trying to bring this subject closer to the people or the visitors of the museum itself. Correct. And this would be the last gallery that we have in Museum Sultan Bakar. This is Persona Indrapura Gallery. So basically, we have this traditional games displayed on top of on the top floor, and then we have the traditional cuisines and traditional tools being used for cooking, catching fish, and so on the bottom floor. So basically, this gallery is about the different communities or different societies that we have in Pahang, because Pahang itself Malaysia is multi-ethnic, but Pahang is multi-ethnic in itself, where we have like different tribes of orang asli and also different communities living in Pahang. So I think this is one of the galleries that local people can relate to the most, because it presents the kind of artifacts that they have seen, and also that's something that they themselves probably use in their daily lives. So instead of presenting history or like the definition or description of people of Pahang based on like Western resources, we actually do that by we ourselves go to the ground or go on the ground and then see and engage with local people. So for example, if you can see here on the left side, we have like pictures of different regions or different places in Pahang, and also different people that the museum we ourselves, the museum has go and engage people and take pictures to exhibit at the museum. So this is like something that you do to try to tell the story from like your own local voices, from the local perspective. So this is like the interior part of this Persona Indrapura Gallery, but we also have the outer section that focuses more on the Orang Asli community. So I think this gallery is very interesting in trying to highlight the different characters or different communities in Pahang from a local perspective, where it focuses on the local people, the local region, and then there's a focus on the cultural traditions and cuisines as well. So this is like the gallery that tells about the societies, and people will usually come, and I guess it's probably the most relatable gallery that they can find out of all the galleries that we have here in Museum Pahang. So apart from exhibitions of artifacts and our galleries, we also preserve tangible heritage by managing a lot of heritage buildings that we have in Pekan and also Kuantan, and inshallah Lipis as well. So for example, the galleries that we have are actually all heritage buildings. So for example, the Museum Sultan Abu Bakar is actually a former palace and a former British resident. And then we have the Museum Masjid Sultan Abdullah, which is formerly a mosque called Masjid Abdullah. And then the Istana Mangga Tunggal itself is a former residence of Tengku Panglima Perang Tengku Muhammad, and also a birthplace of our current Sultan Pahang. And we have Istana Dewan Tunggal, which is currently still under restoration, but it's also a former residence of Tengku Besar Sulaiman. So basically what we do is that we, I guess you can say, restore these old heritage buildings rather than building a new one, and trying to, or what do people call, revitalize or rejuvenate these buildings and put it to a good use by converting it into a gallery, or you can also convert it to other things as well. And then, so this is just quick a view on what the museum and what the mosque museum looks like inside. So this particular museum masjid actually presents the story of Islamic history and also Islamic civilization. So we have a lot of artifacts that highlights the significance or like the greatness of the Islamic civilization, which includes we have a lot of manuscripts, Al-Quran collection, ceramics, local currencies, and also a lot of like the technological inventions by Muslim scholars as well. And I do actually have better pictures of this, but this is Istana Mangga Tunggal. But this is like the extension part of the palace itself. So this is like the birthplace of the current sultan right now. And we also have this whole complex, or like Perkampungan Kraf Diraja, which is 3 minutes drive away from our main site in Bandar Pekan. So basically with this Perkampungan Kraf Diraja, with this complex, you are able to visit this traditional house, Pahang traditional house, which has actually been relocated from Temerloh to this particular site in Pulau Keladi. And then we also have this the birthplace of Tun Abdul Razak, the second Prime Minister of Malaysia, at Pulau Keladi as well. And then we have 2 exhibition halls, which you can visit to see the Tenun Pahang exhibition. And actually, this particular site has also been expanded to include some other facilities as well. So it now has some exhibition halls, cafes, and actually we also have some villas that people can rent and stay at the particular site as well. So apart from Pekan, we are also managing a few heritage buildings in Kuantan. So this particular one is the Contemporary Art Museum, which used to be the Kuantan District Office, and then we're also managing this building, which is now converted into a Royal Library, Putuk Diraja, which houses the Royal Collection and some rare books in Pahang. So it was formerly the administrative office of the Public Works Department, and then we have just taken over and restore this building, I think last year or last 2 years. So it was previously the Syariah Court of Pahang, but it will be converted into the Textile and Fashion Museum, which will be opening inshallah this year, sometime next year. And then like I mentioned before, our most recent project that will be commencing soon is the restoration of this particular Pahang Club building. So it is one of the earliest buildings built by the British in the place, which is in 1907. So from a residence, it then turned into a club, and then after the restoration that will be done by the museum, it will probably be converted as a museum or a gallery that presents about Pahang history or Lipe's history specifically. I wish to go more into this one, but I'm not sure if we have time. But looking at the exhibitions that we have and also the galleries that we have spread across the different districts of Pahang, there's a huge collection of artifacts that we have housed in the museum itself. So we have historical collection, a huge textile collection, we have the Pahang Royal collection, archaeological collection, ethnographic collection, and also an art collection. So apart from the ones that we display in the museum, these collections are actually available for research as well. So these are the things that I want to take this opportunity to also invite any experts or researchers to come and visit and actually conduct research on these collections, because there's still a lot of things that we need to find out and we need to research on these collections. Some of them are still like under researched, I would say. So if there's anyone here who are interested in researching or studying these collections, please pay us a visit, and hopefully we can like collaborate or do some things on the collections that we have in the museum. All right. So the last thing that I want to point out about is the challenges in preserving tangible heritage. Because I think a lot of the things that Museum Pahang is doing, it's not something that's easy to achieve. So from my 2 years of experience observing how things are being done and how things have progressed over the past few decades that it has been in place. So Museum Pahang, I think, it was established in 1976, so it will be almost like 50 years of its establishment. Some of the challenges in preserving tangible heritage includes, I think the most obvious one is funding, because I think most people here would be so familiar with the cost and issues in managing or sustaining old buildings or like heritage buildings. So that's one of the main concern in trying to preserve these like colonial or even traditional houses and also artifacts as well. And then the second challenge is having patronage and support. Because I think without like having a strong patronage and support, it's really hard to push heritage initiative forward. So I guess in Museum Pahang, we are fortunate and quite grateful to have the patronage and support from our rulers, which is the Sultan and also the Tuan of Pahang, who are both deeply passionate in historical and also historical research. So they themselves are actually the patron or like the ambassadors of the museum, who bring their own like visitors or guests to the museum to promote what the museum is doing for the state. So yeah, I think this support is really important from not just the public but also from the higher ups in order to push like this museum to the next level. And then we also have the challenge in maintaining buildings and also collection management, because obviously with expanding institution, you also have like expanding things to manage, which includes collection as well. And that relates to the problems of having the lack of human resources. Like even though we have like 100+ staff in the museum at the moment, it is still insufficient to actually maintain all this, because we have like, I think more than almost 10 different sites or museums or galleries that we have to maintain, and our collection is growing every single year. So there's a lack of expertise. We still need more people, and finding the right people with the right kind of qualification and knowledge and expertise is not easy. Basically, trying to manage and oversee this kind of maintenance of the buildings and also managing the collections. So that's one of the challenges as well. And that also relates to the awareness that we have, not just among the general public on the importance of preserving heritage, but also in the public institution, basically government institution. And this is something that I think I personally obviously see in when it comes to like discussion on organizational structure changes, because obviously for Museum Pahang, for example, we are expanding and we're not the same kind of we're not the same museum that we used to be 10 or even 20 years ago. So we are expanding very rapidly for the past few years. So you can't actually stick to the same structure that you have used for the past like 20 years or 10 years ago. So trying to impose this kind of organizational structure has been a huge challenge in trying to make like the government institution like understand like why museum needs to work in a certain way or in a different way. So you can't really stick to the original structure of having like one or two curators per museum institution, because this is just like the expansion of the museum needs to be in line with the expansion of the human resources that it has. So this kind of awareness is something that really need to be pushed forward, and I think our director is fighting really hard to push this awareness so that people can understand what a museum is doing, and it's not just something that we do like just to think on exhibition, but we also have a lot of like research stuff, and then the managing of buildings are not really something that's easy to do, and there's like a lot of manpower that needs to be involved. So I think I conclude my sharing today with this, with a summary of what decolonizing museums is about. So basically, it is very important that we recognize that histories and cultures are not to be viewed solely through the lens of Western narrative. So there's a need to like move away from these European-centric frameworks or resources that we have always stick to, and try to find and instead involve the unearthing and celebration of indigenous knowledge, local traditions, and the diverse experiences of our people. So basically, this is important to restore cultural dignity and also national pride. And I think in the context of Museum Pahang, it is something that we're probably, I guess we can say, on the right track. But we're hoping that more and more museums and heritage institutions can take on the same path and try to, elevate the museum industry in Malaysia and also the heritage institution in Malaysia to a higher level. So I think the most important part, I think at the end, is successful decolonization efforts are tailored to each museum, as each museum has its own history. So it's not just something that you can just look at, for example, look at different museums and just apply it to your museum as well. I think it still amazes me how our director traveled abroad and see a lot of museums in Europe and in Asia, but he is capable of like bringing back all the experience and the exposure that he got overseas and actually contextualize or localize it to like Malaysia or like Pahang context. So I think that's something that a lot of museum professionals or heritage professionals need to like learn and try to apply, because it's really important to like try to push, try to elevate and promote our heritage industry to like the next level. So yeah, I guess before I end, I would like to take the opportunity again to invite everyone to come to Museum Pahang and see the exhibition, the artifacts that we have, and also to visit the heritage buildings that we have restored, and experience Pahang for yourself. And with that, thank you so much for having me again.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nurul, for very interesting and also insightful presentation. So now we now open the floor for Q&A. Either you can put your questions in the chat box, or you may raise your hand and you can ask directly to the panels the questions. Any questions from the audience? Any question? Oh, sorry. Any questions or discussions from the audience? Mhm.
Dr. Raya.
Yes, saya.
Okay. If there are no questions, I have actually shared my email. So
Mhm.
if any of the participants want to ask question regarding Masjid
Ah.
Lama Parit Istana, you can email me and I will reply accordingly lah. Yeah. So if they don't want to ask any questions during the session lah.
Okay. No problems. Miss Nurul also shared the email, right?
Yeah, I think we all should go to Pekan lah to look at the museum.
Yeah,
Very
so
beautiful.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
interesting. They have done it.
I visited Pekan. By that time, they're still doing the conservation work, so it was not completed yet. So I noticed all this. You can actually create a trail for the museum.
Mhm.
That's what I did lah. I was trying to I was trying to plan for a historical building trail in Pekan actually. Yeah. So we look at the museum Sultan Abu Bakar, and then the Mosque Museum, the Museum Leban Tunggal. We went to all those buildings. Very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think everybody should go there and have a look, and maybe can stay a night in Pekan lah. At night we stayed a night in Pekan. Quite nice area actually.
Maybe we at ICOMOS also can arrange like a trip there, right?
Yeah, betul. I think we can arrange a trip for ICOMOS members to go to Pekan. Hamiza can host us there lah and take us through all the museum in Pekan.
I shared the article that I put in the slide on the start in the link in the chat. So everyone, so anyone who's like want to check out the link can see about our Pahang Museum campus and also the heritage trail that our director shared.
There is a question there lah. Apa nama ni, Raya?
Sekejap. Bolehkah museum menyediakan ruang prescription kepada masyarakat yang sedang tenat dan atau keliru mengenai sejarah yang sedang toksik di media sosial? Rasanya ini siapa ya? Aisyah Mudin. Encik Aisyah Mudin. Apa yang Encik Aisyah masukkan ya? You boleh on dan ni juga.
Prescription.
Prescription.
I'm not sure what specifically the question refers to, but I think kalau Museum Pahang itself, with our new galleries, we actually include the sources or like something like a bibliography punya list, so that people can actually macam be confident in the kind of narrative that we present. So it's not like something, because like with media, with social media, they macam something that you don't know where it comes from, and then with even with museum itself, we have people or visitors and yang datang and query and question the kind of narrative that we present. So one of the ways that we try to tackle that is that we present this kind of like sources that we refer to. So basically, trying to get visitors to have more confidence lah in like and less confusion in the narrative that we have. But then I guess for a specific prescription punya space tu, I think at the moment we depends a lot on the narrative or the write-up yang we present lah at the museum. But we also have the like each of our museum or gallery tu we have our own orang kata penjaga galeri. We have the pembantu museum who's in charge of each gallery. So these people can be point of contact for these visitors to actually approach and ask questions about the narrative or the presentation. And if it's like something that needs to further discussion, we also have the curators in the museum that they can further discuss about the narrative and so on.
Hafiz cakap this is probably referred to the pseudo history that is rampant in social media.
I think one of the things is that not to consume history on social media because I think like not like a verified or veritable sources that you can use lah as something to refer to when it comes to history.
Kalau museum Pahang tu kita boleh ni online juga. Do you have that online punya digital punya ni?
Sorry?
Dekat Museum Pahang, all the Museum Pahang tu, do you have like a website that kita boleh visit and then maybe kita boleh look on the ni? Ke belum lagi?
So basically, we have just baru je tutup our website last year because we are in the process of updating. Sebab there are so many new updates. So like recent, I think in the past the museum only consists of Museum Sultan Abu Bakar and a few, I think, contemporary art museum and the museum masjid. But now we have like a lot of sites already, like macam baru nak buka next year. So we currently shut down the website untuk in the process of updating lah. So it's in the process of maintenance. Maybe it will be, I think it's like probably one of the project this year or next year. So that's on the way.
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Nurul,
Tadi ada soalan daripada town planner Ishak tadi. Dia dah angkat tangan nak tanya.
Oh, okay. Silakan Town Planner Ishak. Nak tanya directly? Both
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can hear me, yeah?
Yeah, can.
Okay, yeah. Tadi, sorry, this is for the architect, Dr. Zulhamli, yeah? I missed the earlier part of your talk tadi, a bit, but dalam National Heritage Register, so this is the official name, bukan kita usually kata National Heritage List, but it's National Heritage Register. There's a listing as which is named Masjid Tua Kampung Tengah / Masjid Tanjung Beringin Seri Menanti. Yeah. Is this one mosque? Or like the different name for the same mosque, because you were talking about a couple of mosques in Seri Menanti with this interesting design, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yang Masjid Lama Parit Istana tu is one mosque, and Masjid Tanjung Beringin tu is the other mosque yang saya tunjuk last hari tu. So it's two different mosques.
This one Masjid Tua Kampung Tengah. Is that an alternative name of Masjid Tanjung Beringin?
Masjid Tua Kampung Tengah saya tak pasti. Yang saya tahu Kampung Beringin tu lah. Mungkin juga dipanggil Kampung Tengah, saya tak pasti. Di Seri Menanti juga ya, Town Planner Ishak. Seri Menanti ya. Ya. Yang saya tahu ada dua saja. Ada dua saja masjid yang masuk dalam list di Seri Menanti tu. Satu yang Tanjung Beringin tu, yang saya tunjuk kemudian tadi kan. And the other one is Masjid Lama Parit Istana lah, dua saja yang listed dalam National Heritage Register.
Okay. This is one problem that I always find in the register listing. It will with the name of the building, we call it the heritage item, especially the building, but it does not record the full address of the building or the good place of the access or the right to the building. Sometimes it's very vague. It's just the name of the building, and sometimes they don't use the original name of the building. They use a new name for the building, so they did not put in brackets the original name of the building. So, for example, now kita ada Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad. Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad is a general post office or in the public building. But now both buildings being referred to as Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad. The bigger one is Block A and the other one is Block B. So it creates confusion to people. One of the things I highlighted is we shouldn't call the old, post office building, sama stop. Because nanti orang terlupa about the
Correct,
post
yes.
office. Because across the road, dekat Jalan Raja, you can see the zero miles in Pastung. Yes, dia batu jalan tu, bila the zero milestone means usually that's where the location of the post office is, in the town, and that's where there's a major distance from that town to another place. So, because sometimes I ask people, what is the significance of that zero milestone? And nobody knows, because the building itself is not referred to as the old general purpose of the building. Because now everybody knows the new general purpose of it is in diabetes, which is at least half a kilometer away from the original site.
Okay, I think that's one area that kita boleh improve, and I agree with you. The documentation is very important, and like I mentioned earlier, even the Masjid Lama Parit Istana tu, there is no document to prove that it was built in 1796, only by oral history. Um, I also like to share again, when I went to Korea to look at their heritage building, actually on the top of the roof, under the ridge, the timber that is the ridge of the roof, they actually put the date when the building was constructed and who was the master carpenter. So it is all properly recorded and is on the building itself. So when they dismantle all the roof structure, then they discover when the building was originally built and who was the master carpenter, and if there are any, for example, reconstruction or preservation, they will still record it on the same place. So it's very, very well documented lah. So a practice that I think we can adopt to record all our either tangible or intangible heritage. Thank you, Town Planner Ishak, for sharing your views.
There is a question, Ms. Nurul, daripada Fatihah. It's about the selections of archival material. Could you share how Museum Pahang incorporates decolonizing for the narrative interpretations aspect?
When it comes to the narrative aspect, so basically in the process of producing our write-up or the captions, we also ensure that our resources include or involve comparative research on local resources as well. So we actually, apart from the Western, so just now I shared about, like for example, the history of Pahang book written by William Minahan, but we also have a lot of like manuscripts, Jawi manuscripts, and also resources written by local scholars on the state. So we make sure that we cross-check a lot of like resources and not just focus on like Western or Eurocentric, even though a lot of the documentation are written by these Western or British officers, but they are actually local resources that we need to refer. But then these involve a lot of effort lah. So for example, going to the archives and looking for these like old manuscripts, because this is probably it's not available as accessible as these Western resources, because these are published like in journal articles and everywhere. So I actually have a lot of my colleagues from Museum Pahang in this session as well. So they are the ones who are also involved in researching for the narratives and for the write-up. So these are the people who have been like going to the archive doing research on this write-up. So yeah, maybe if they have like more comments, but essentially that's how we do it with our presentation of story or narrative in the museum.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Nurul. I think we take the last questions. Maybe Dr. Zul or our president can answer this. Are there any physical talks or seminars in Pahang and Negeri Sembilan by ICOMOS? I am also a licensed tourist guide seeking to refine my knowledge on heritage and architecture.
Maybe our president can answer this. President Faisal.
Sorry, saya tak boleh buka camera because I'm using my phone at the moment. But I think one of the things that ICOMOS Malaysia is thinking, actively planning now, is to having all these physical visits and study tours to different places. So I think I take into account lah the Negeri Sembilan and Pahang, and we might organize a study tour to these places. I guess a lot of people want to go physically to places and not have this talk via webinar like this. So I think follow us and we will keep you updated lah with all the plannings that we're going to do. Thank you.
I think with the interest shown, it means that our session is actually achieving the objective lah. We have to create more awareness among our members, also among the public, about our heritage, be it tangible or intangible heritage. Yep.
I think last comment kot daripada Aisyah Mudin. Kebanyakan masjid kayu Melayu tidak meletakkan nama tukangnya kerana masjid dibina bersama. Cuma kita boleh trace DNA motif siapa pertukangannya. Macam like a note.
Yeah, like that's again come back to documentation lah. I agree. Yeah. So I think we should really document properly, and if we can do the research, and then we should have it documented lah for our future generation. Yep. I totally agree with that. Yep.
So any question lagi ke? Kita boleh close the questions Q&A?
Kalau dah tak ada, I think because it's almost 6. It's almost 6. Maybe we can conclude lah, Dr. Raya, kalau tak ada apa-apa.
So then, thank you to our both speakers for the enlightening session. So as we approach the end of the session, allow me to share some of the upcoming initiative by ICOMOS Malaysia. Boleh share ke? Okay. So kita menjemput, actually we invite all our members. Win dah share ni ke? Win, Lin? They are supposed to share the... Okay. So kita actually menjemput lah semua yang hadir di sini dan juga our members untuk submit abstract for this SEMBRANI. So kita as Dr. Zul bagi tahu that ini adalah santai sharing sessions yang kita get together, and then kan kita ada similar interest untuk proceed ataupun untuk venture into. Then the second one is on the the abstract. Kalau interested boleh hantar kepada kita lah to submit the abstract. Our ni dah letak dekat chat box, dan kawan-kawan semua boleh submit that. Then the second
the form the form ada dalam chat box
form ada dekat chat box.
Alright.
The second one kita in the 18 next week kan kita ada the Heritage Impact Assessment HIA webinar on the issues and challenges in Asia Pacific region, East Asia editions. Okay. And then the third one kita ada the National Heritage Conference yang will take place daripada 18 to 19 February dekat Melaka. This is collaboration between the MIP. Okay. And then the fourth one is for our next sessions lah. Hopefully all of you boleh join us for the next session. SEMBRANI kita akan buat sebulan sekali. So the next session will be on the 26th of February 2025 at the same time. Okay. So thanks. Before we conclude, can we take a photo so then hopefully that everybody boleh on the camera. So this is okay. On the camera. Okay, feedback form. Okay. We also, here, there is a feedback form, Google form, that kita pun nak dapatkan feedback daripada all of you to improve our SEMBRANI 2.0, and then any suggestions from all of you that attending today. So can we on the camera and then take a photos? Okay. Boleh on the camera? A group photo. We want to take a group photo to commemorate our event today. Boleh?
One, two, three. Smile. Okay, one more time. One, two, three. Smile.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
See you for the next session on the 26th. Okay,
All right.
Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam. Please submit your subject using the form. Bye.
Bye.